I wonder what the NFL's thought process is with this and all of that, because it's like you talked about before. I know this is not apples to apples, but again, like the NFL usually is thinking about horror stories. That's probably why they're, hey, player safety, all of that, the kickoff rules, right? You've said many times their biggest fear is one of these kickoffs, somebody runs down, breaks their neck, whatever, dies on the field, something like that, and they go, oh no, right? Well, I mean, gosh, out of the world of bad things that could happen, right? That's right up there. I mean, hey, receiver who was really good for our most popular team killed somebody, a few months after they won the Super Bowl because he was drag racing down. Like, that's one where I could see the NFL maybe trying to be a little proactive here and trying to discourage, kind of like you talked about with, like, hey, laws and punishing stars to make an example, a little the same thing, like just a warning notice to all those guys out there, like, hey, spring and summer's coming. I know you're going to have a break. I know there's going to be times when you're in your fast, V12 Ferrari with 600 horsepower. Don't punch it and go 120 on the shoulder, right? And I just wonder if the NFL has an urge to make an example here to kind of shut all that down, or at least get it in players' minds right now.
I said last week they should show that video at every off-season workout meeting as a kickoff and as a warning. They should show it on the way out the door. That's that. And this was the personal conduct policy has worked. I mentioned this possibly on Friday. There's been chatter that the personal conduct policy is a failure. No, just because there's a couple of recent incidents. You had Cam Sutton, who was accused of domestic battery and just disappeared for several days. He was at the Lions facility, and they saw him there, and they're like, you're wanted in Florida, and then he left, and he still didn't turn himself in. That was a bad look. This Rashee Rice thing was a bad look on numerous fronts. But for the most part, the personal conduct policy has worked. And I remember when the off-season programs would end, and you would have that 4, 5, 6 weeks where the players are left to their own devices. And that's the time on the calendar when coaches and general managers can relax. They're sleeping with one eye open.
Oh, definitely.
Wondering when that call's going to come.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one summer, we were at the beach that year, and it's like every night there was another incident involving a different player on a different team. Every night it was something else as guys were on their own. So you need to hammer this into their heads. The teams need to do it individually, and the league needs to be telling the teams to do this. You just don't assume they'll think of it on their own. Every team needs to show that video to their players at a minimum as they're leaving. Do it now and do it when they're leaving the offseason program. You don't want them to do the same thing. And Chris, you're making a good point. And this comes back to, you do something like this and they're going to make an example of you. And it may be that the NFL needs to hammer Rashee Rice now. Do it now to send the loudest possible message. We're not going to tolerate this. If the union wants to fight us, so be it. We'll take up this fight. If they want to say you can't do this, fine. Let them be the ones on the side of protecting somebody who was driving so recklessly.
Right.
And think about what really happened here. A person named Theodore Knox was driving the other car in this.
The Corvette.
And there's a player on the SMU roster by the name of Theodore Knox. We haven't 100% confirmed it's the same guy, but Rashee Rice went to SMU. He was just there not that long ago. Apparently there were other SMU players in the car with him. But he's got two cars at a minimum. He's got this Lamborghini he's leasing. He's got this Corvette registered to him. Let's go out and let's play Need for Speed on the highways. Let's go race. Is that what happened? It sure seems like it. It sure seems like they were out there racing these two cars deliberately and intentionally, and it went sideways literally for everyone who happened to be unfortunate enough to be in the vicinity of those two cars as they tried to work through a cluster of traffic that they weren't going to work through without causing a crash. All the more reason to take action now if you're the NFL. I kind of agree with you on this. I don't want to be too hard on the kid because he does have rights.
Yeah.
But in the eyes of, we've seen the commissioner trample on rights left and right. If they got a message they want to send, they're going to send that message. And to send this message as loudly and effectively as they need to, it might be they have to indefinitely suspend him now without pay, pending the resolution of the case, and then impose final discipline after the case is over.
We'll see. And listen, by all due accounts, again, I'm with you. I don't want to be too hard on Rashee Rice too. I know he does have rights, and I don't think he's a mean person. I think he just did a dumb young thing, right? Hey, listen, I've definitely sped at that age faster than I should have as well, but. I do think this is a pretty serious situation. It's the thing the NFL has to be in front of to, again, warn players where this is in players. Players are renegades. NFL players, a lot of them have mastered, what I always say, the F it. Oh, F it, I'm going to punch it. F it, I'm going to hit it and go around this guy, right? F it, I'm going to, stick my head in there against Derrick Henry and see how it works out, right? That's how a player's wired. And sometimes it takes these type of things and those type of warnings to get it in the player's head a little bit. And that's where I think it could do. And then you talked about hey, we've seen, I feel like Ezekiel Elliott, was probably trampled on rights and whatever else. And that whole process there where I felt like that was more egregious maybe than this would even be right here. I know it's not apples to apples all the way through there, but you talk about the league, their power in doing things like you said, they've done more egregious things before.
And that speaks to one of the flaws in the NFL's process. I was asked about this yesterday at 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh, because now that Cam Sutton was cut by the Lions, there are some folks in Pittsburgh that are thinking, hey, once he resolves whatever has gone on, if charges are dropped, let's bring him back. He's a good player. And that's the flaw. You need to have typical domestic violence case, you need to have a motivated victim. In the Ezekiel Elliott case, there was a motivated victim who was interviewed 6-7 different times by the NFL and gladly cooperated. They've got no subpoena power. If the alleged victim in the Cam Sutton case drops charges and isn't going to cooperate, there isn't a damn thing the NFL can do about it, even though this guy was on the lam literally for multiple weeks before he turned himself in.
On the lam?
Anything they can do about it. Yeah, I think that's the word, on the lam.
I don't that's a new one to me.
The lamb?
That's
on the lamb, not L-A-M-B. He didn't ride a lamb. He didn't ride a young sheep out of town.
I was like, damn, is that something from back in the old days? People used to drive a lamb out of there? So what do you mean? What the hell does that mean? Explain that one to me.
He was wanted and he disappeared.
Yeah,
he was on the lamb.
I figured the lamb. Okay, the lamb is for the loose. Okay.
L-A-M. We need to look up where on the lamb came from.
Okay, we do.
And now I'm curious.
Yeah, get on the case.
Word origins on the lamb, but I guarantee you it is not something that started because some guy in the Old West decided he was going to jump on a young sheep and hightail it out.
I'm out of here. So, I got a lamb. I'm dodging. I'm getting out of here. I'm getting away from Wyatt Earp on the lamb.
We've already got some reports coming in here. It's like reading a ticker tape. It types this in. Type faster. On the lamb is trying to avoid being caught by police. Okay, we know that much. We want to know where it comes from. Right. On the lam officially means trying to avoid being caught by the police, which Cam Sutton was. But again, I'm not trying to make light of it. The point is, in his case, if there's no motivated victim, the NFL's process internally short circuits. In this case, they got the video. We saw what he did. He's admitted to it through his lawyer. He's charged with it. The NFL doesn't need anything to drop the hammer of justice on Rashee Rice. So, it is a different situation because they see it. It's a big deal. It's talked about on national news. I assume it's on the other networks too. I only watch NBC, not because I'm contractually obligated to. I just choose to be a good teammate. NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. There's another Lester Holt drop. That is where I see it every time there's development. There's Rashee Rice. There's Lester Holt talking about it. That's a big deal for the NFL. So they need to do something. I think silence isn't acceptable at this point, right? And again, I don't want to advocate hammering the kid, but this is the price you pay when you do stupid shit. Stuff like this is what happens, and that's part of the message that needs to be sent to other guys who might be inclined to get behind the wheel of a really fast car and say, F it, as you said, and hit the pedal and say, it's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to me. It happened to him. It's not going to happen to me. Yeah. That mindset is what causes bad things to happen. People think bad things aren't going to happen, so they go out and they do something. It's like, oh, the bad thing happened. Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah. No, again, I'm with you. I don't want the kid's life and career to be ruined or anything like that. I'm definitely not. I'm a fan of Rashee Rice. I was a fan of him coming out in the draft. I really liked him. right? So there's like, I don't want that. But, within the greater good to be made an example of for like, hey, maybe to save more lives in the summer or save a guy in the NFL's life for not driving like that or whatever, if there has to be something done to set that example, then I'm all for that to just save people down the road. And that's where I think we're a little bit in that conversation. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. But it definitely went up another level of intensity yesterday, at least in my mind, where I was kind of like, this will get figured out eventually. I don't know. Rashee Rice, he'll be on the Chiefs next year. It'll be no problem. To like yesterday, like, oh, damn, like this is serious and Rashee Rice is in trouble and he's definitely going to get suspended. And how long will he get suspended for is the question now. And I think that's where it kind of triggered in my brain, Mike.
Yeah, look, I think this is a far bigger deal than the NFL has acknowledged yet, because all they've said is, we are monitoring, we are monitoring, we are monitoring. At some point, you've done enough monitoring. At some point, it's time to do some acting, to do some decision-making, and maybe do some suspending of Rashee Rice. And I say all that acknowledging he has rights. He'll have legal representation. He'll have to navigate criminal and civil and NFL and PR. It's just it's a horrible PR move. And yet we know the NFL cares about that. Fundamentally, the entire personal conduct policy is a PR device that the NFL developed because, Chris, and let's not get it twisted up. In 99% or more of American workplaces, the things you do away from work are not something that you should ever be disciplined for at work. As long as you can show up for your job every day and do your job, anything you do on your own time is your own concern. And there's no rule or regulation that should affect you for the things you do on your own time. As long as you can show up. If you're incarcerated, that might be a problem. But if you can show up for work, you show up for work. The NFL has taken the things you do off the clock and they've made it part of what you are on the clock. You're a representative of the NFL anywhere and everywhere that you go. The things you do on your own time, if you cross the line, you're in trouble with us. And the union allows that. That's been negotiated. So this is a rare occurrence where the things you do on your own time become the basis for potential job action at work. And we take that as a given because in the NFL it is, but it is a rarity that the employer has any grounds to do anything to you. But if you're going to have that power, this is a prime situation where it needs to be exercised.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I don't, right? I'm all for, player rights and we're usually pro player and all that, but I'm also pro common sense and pro we like the NFL and the league to be at its best and people to be safe. And I think when you add all that up there, I mean, I'm thinking a lot of the same things you are, Mike.
I think one of the realities here is we've been wired to be extra careful in this one from the get-go because when we saw and heard about it initially, we weren't sure he was driving.
Right.
And so we're kind of like, well, all right, we don't know that he was driving. Let's tread lightly. Let's be careful. And then we find out he's driving, and we're still, I think, in that, let's be careful. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. What do we give him the benefit of the doubt on? He was driving. His lawyer said he was driving. He was one of the guys behind the wheel. He's responsible for the crash. He's responsible for leaving the scene. He's responsible. And there's responsibility that's going to manifest itself in various ways, including scrutiny from people like us and ultimately some sort of action by the league. And I'm with you. You've kind of talked me to this point where, and I don't want to be iron-fisted on this, but I think the league needs to do something sooner than later if the league wants to send the strongest possible message to the rest of the players who are out driving around on weekends while they're in their off-season programs or once the program is over and they've got that 4 to 6 weeks of time to themselves. You want them to understand. Learn from someone else's mistake. Don't be the next one that we're using to get others to not make this same mistake again. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.